Hello and welcome to My Newt News. I'm not a Newt. My name's not Newt. But you can call me Newt, because you know what? I've been called a lot worse. And today I want to talk to you about the possibilities for Doctor Who spinoffs, which I think is a cool idea. I think that, they've done them in the past. Some were better than others. Some of them started out good and kind of faded, but I'll get into this. And basically, I'm starting off with a story here from Inverse, and then I'm just going to kind of go off on my own and some commentary and some ideas and whatnot. Inverse. Doctor Who could become the new Marvel, but there's a catch. The Whoniverse might be getting a ton of new spin-offs, but will it work? Way back in 2008, the Doctor Who Season 4 two-parter, The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, brought together several previous companions of the Doctor and spanned the continuities of 3 separate TV shows. In his 2010 memoir, then showrunner Russell T Davies said this super team-up was inspired by Marvel's The Avengers. And now in 2023, Davies is the Who showrunner again, and he wants to build out the Whoniverse in a Marvel-esque way. But will it work? The future of Doctor Who spin-offs. 2023 and 2024 will be big years for Doctor Who. This year we'll see 3 linked specials starring David Tennant as the newly regenerated 14th Doctor, even though he previously played the 10th Doctor back from 2006 to 2010, and again in 2013. Then in 2024, Ncuti Gatwa will step on the TARDIS as the incumbent 15th Doctor for the next ongoing regular season of the show. Unlike previous years, all of these new Doctor Who adventures will air on Disney Plus outside of the UK, giving the venerable sci-fi show a much bigger platform than it's ever had in its 60 years. And perhaps the most crucial thing about all this is that the current incumbent Doctor Who showrunner is, once again, Russell T Davies. Back in 2008, when he was managing 2 Doctor Who spin-offs, Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures, the MCU wasn't a thing. The inspiration for Journey's End came from the comic book versions of the Avengers, because the films hadn't really happened yet. But now the landscape has changed, and Davies thinks the time is right for a bunch of new Doctor Who spin-offs. Speaking to GQ recently, Davies said, quote, "I thought the streaming platforms are ready. The spin-offs are ready," unquote. So this seems to imply that in addition to new episodes of Doctor Who streaming on Disney Plus for the foreseeable future, Davies also wants to bring back at least a few Who spin-offs. But what will these look like? The uneven history of Who spin-offs. And I have to agree with that. They're kind of uneven. As Davies pointed out in the aughts, he was responsible for the Who spin-offs, Torchwood, 2006 through 2011, and the Sarah Jane Adventures, 2007 to 2011, both of which were direct outgrowths of the David Tennant era of Who. The origin of Torchwood, a group of clandestine earthbound alien hunters, began in Tennant's first year as the Doctor, and the Sarah Jane Adventures, starring former 3rd and 4th Doctor companion Sarah Jane Smith, played by Elizabeth Sladen, was a direct result of the character returning for the Season 2 Tennant episode, School Reunion. Interestingly, the Sarah Jane Adventures was the second attempt for a spin-off centered on Sarah Jane. The first was a would-be series called K9 and Company, which would have teamed Sarah Jane with the Doctor's robot dog K9. This 1981 show never made it beyond the pilot episode, but did gift the world with a hilarious opening montage featuring Sarah Jane drinking wine, jogging, and apparently writing something on a typewriter outside. And interestingly, Sarah Jane does have K9 in the Tennant era still, so maybe K9 and Company is canon? And the thing is, they're kind of slagging on it, but it's, it was 1981. Cut them some slack, people. And there she is. I don't care for that hairstyle, though. K9. K9. No, I can't do a very good K9, sorry. But I'm going to stop making fun of that. If you want, you can go on YouTube, K9 and Company opening titles. There's also the strange 2009-2010 Australian-produced children's series Canine, which, as you might guess, starred the robot dog Canine. However, this canine was slightly different than the normal canine, and for weird legal reasons, direct connections to the Who canon remain muddy. And then, of course, there's the ill-fated 2016 spin-off Class, which occurred during the Peter Capaldi era, and even featured Capaldi as the 12th Doctor in its debut episode. This series focused on Coal Hill School and followed high school kids battling all sorts of aliens and monsters. Its season finale even revealed that the Who villains, the Weeping Angels, had been plotting behind the scenes all along. Class was created by Patrick Ness and was canceled after one season, and we never did find out what happened with those Weeping Angels. Of all the Who spin-offs, Torchwood probably remains the most popular and critically acclaimed, though retrospectively, not every aspect of that sexually charged series has aged that well. Plus, the 2011 miniseries Torchwood Miracle Day was, from most perspectives, a critical failure despite the amazing amount of talent involved. Torchwood star John Barrowman's various controversies haven't helped the show's legacy either. Finally, despite positive early buzz for Class, that series died a quick death. No Doctor Who spin-off has managed to last. But why? Well, I got news for you. First of all, I personally, and this is my opinion, it's worth every cent you paid for it. I think that Torchwood started off good because it was a good mix of action-adventure and character and personal life. Because if you do just action-adventure, you've got, 80s Bond movies. If you mix in some of the personal life, human interaction and everything, then that adds depth to it and makes it better, makes it more adult. But I personally think that as it went on, Torchwood kind of went off the rails and became very soap opera-y, and it was less about the fighting aliens and all that than it was about their love lives and interpersonal stuff. Someone tuning into a Doctor Who spinoff, honestly, I don't think that's what they're looking for. I think they're looking for well-written action-adventure involving aliens, weird science, whatever. And so I think that Torchwood kind of fell down on the job on that. Now, they say that the Sarah Jane Adventures didn't last. Well, that's because Sarah Jane died. I'll see here. See Elizabeth Sladen. Where's it at? See, the show went into 2011, and she was diagnosed with cancer in February 2011 and died in April of 2011. And she was only 65, which is way too young for someone to die anymore. But the thing is that you've got the show named after the specific character, and the person playing the character dies. What the hell are you supposed to do? You can't exactly keep going with it. I mean, they could have, but it would have been horrible. So I think they made the wise choice, but you can't really say that that was a failure of the show. That was unfortunate circumstances that, caused the end of the show, but that doesn't mean the show itself was a failure. Okay, does Doctor Who work without the Doctor? I think it can. I think early Torchwood and also Sarah Jane Adventures both show that it can. Now, is it perfect? Is it as good as ones with the Doctor? Probably not. Because that's part of the whole Doctor Who thing is the Doctor. Duh. While Torchwood has its diehard fans, the fact remains that no single Who spin-off is anywhere close to being as popular or as good as Doctor Who itself. As Davies suggests in the same GQ interview, this is probably because of money. If the spin-offs aren't well funded and promoted, then nobody watches them and they die, never to regenerate again. But is there another reason? Is the Who universe coherent and interesting enough to sustain shows in which the Doctor rarely appears? And that's another thing. One of the reasons why Russell T Davies' Doctor Who episodes were so good and so engaging is because he's a really good writer, and he brought on really good writers and made sure the script quality was high. Now, was he doing that with Torchwood as much, and was he doing it with the Sarah Jane Adventures as much? Honestly, probably not, because his main focus was Doctor Who. Am I saying that Torchwood and Sarah Jane Adventures were crap? No, I'm not. But, if you've got one guy running 3 shows and he's focusing on the moneymaker, then obvious, The other two are going to kind of suffer in comparison. And I got a picture of Paul McGann as the Eighth Doctor. And for many casual fans, the answer to this question is probably no. While diehards will point to the countless audio dramas featuring one-time companions doing their own thing without the Doctor. But again, honestly, I mean, those aren't as good. You know, we watch Doctor Who, listen to Doctor Who stuff, mostly for the Doctor. But does that mean a spinoff can't go without a Doctor? No, I don't think so. I think that if it's well written and it's got some money and it's got somebody who has the time to hurt it and ensure quality and make sure that the writers are writing good stuff and make sure the directors are doing good, then yeah, I think it can be good. But what Davies is suggesting now seems closer to a Marvel model or something like what the Trek franchise has done since 2020. Create a variety of very different types of shows set in the same continuity. Yeah, but how successful have they been? The Star Trek The Next Generation, after the first season, which was kind of it was well written, it was high quality, and it drew good ratings. But what are the ratings on some of the new ones? I don't think they're that great, because I think a lot of people don't think that they're that good. Again, my opinion could be wrong. Perhaps the answer is obvious. Make sure the Who spinoffs do feature the Doctor. As many fans have pointed out, it would be very easy to have limited series spin-offs about previous Doctors, in the style of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Paul McGann's Eighth Doctor is a prime example of this. A limited series set between the events of the 1996 movie and the events of the minisode The Night of the Doctor could be amazing. Similarly, since David Bradley has canonically taken over the role of the first Doctor, originally played by William Hartnell, why not give him a spin-off of Retro Adventures, which we've never seen? And he's okay. Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor and Joe Martin as the fugitive Doctor. Now, I know they're going to push one with her, and I think that she's a good actress. I have to admit that in the Jodie episode she was in, I don't know whether it's because she was hiding stuff from the Doctor and lying and trying to, cover up who she was, but I was not super thrilled with her. But, if they do a spinoff, I'll give it a try. Like I said, I think she's a good actress. And, if they have good writing, could be excellent. Don't know. We'll have to see. In fact, you can imagine all the spinoffs as starring different Doctors. One of the most tantalizing notions to emerge from the Jodie Whittaker era was the fact that prior to all previous 1963 canon, the Doctor secretly worked for a Time Lord secret agent organization called the Division. Joe Martin's fugitive Doctor comes from this era, and since we've only seen her in a handful of episodes, giving that Doctor her own spin-off seems ideal. Call it Doctor Who Division, and give the series a darker, grittier tone while keeping the canon of the regular series intact. Seems like a perfect idea, right? Maybe. Because I don't know. I'm just afraid that they're going to get into that whole spy agency stuff and just go too far. But, again, you never know. The point is, as much as some fans might not like the idea of a spin-off featuring popular companions like Ace, Sophie Aldred, or a sitcom about the Cybermen and Daleks living together with Cassandra the Last Human, the fact is Doctor Who probably needs the Doctor, even in a spin-off show. The series reminds us that the TARDIS is bigger on the inside, but in order to succeed, the spin-offs probably need to keep the focus a little bit smaller. And that's where I kind of disagree. First of all, the idea of a Cyberman Dalek sitcom is just horrific. Also, the thing about Ace, Sophie Aldred was on in, the late 80s? That's like 30 plus years ago. She's got to be 60, 65, I don't know. And one of the things that you're going to want to do is draw in new audience. And I don't think bringing back a geriatric sidekick from 40 years ago, don't think that's the way to do it. Because by the time it gets in, it's going to be a full 40 years. She's going to be, 65, 70, maybe older? Bringing one of the old companions on briefly in a series, in the regular Doctor Who, for a cameo, that's fine. That's great. It touches your feels, your memory banks, great. But to actually base it, a spinoff on somebody like that, I'm sorry, but But the kids don't want to watch geezers running around. They want to watch, middle-aged at most, especially if they're hot, like John Barrowman. They can kind of go with it. But, somebody 70, 75, 8, no, I don't think so. Okay, that's something different. Okay. So now I'm going to get into my ideas, or idea. One of my favorite Doctor Who episodes was The Doctor's Daughter. And I'll be honest, when I watched that, at the end of the episode, I was thinking, this is clearly meant for a spinoff. And as far as I'm concerned, at the end of that episode, they should have started up with the spinoff right away, had her going off and doing her adventures, because she was perfect. At that time, you had Torchwood for the adult audience. You had the Sarah Jane Adventures for the young kids. You had Doctor Who itself for the whole family. And you could have had the Doctor's Daughter, Jenny, for teens and tweens and people who like eye candy. It would have been perfect. But they didn't do it. Why didn't they do it? I don't know. I don't know whether it was money or if Russell T Davies couldn't convince him or what. Now, the problem is if you bring this show back now, Georgia Tennant is not 20-something anymore. She's, by the time the show would get going, she would be 40. And she's had a bunch of kids. I just don't know. I mean, not that I'm slagging on her at all. She's still a hottie. But if you're tuning in the show expecting a 23-year-old and you get a 40-year-old, okay. So, my idea, and I don't know, do they have a picture of her recently? I'm sure I can find one. See, she's 38 now, so she's going to be early 40s by the time they put a show on. Now, what I think should happen is, so you de-age her a little bit, do some slick makeup, soft lens. So you show her being captured. So my idea is that you're going to introduce a new bad guy Time Lord, kind of like the Master. You've had the Master, and in that one episode they went through the names of a bunch of others. This one would be the Mechanic. Now the Mechanic at some point has gotten hold of a Weeping Angel and did a few genetic modifications so that, the Weeping Angels currently, or traditionally, they will send somebody back into the past and live off the residual time energy of the life that they would have had. In this one, the new modified Weeping Angel, call them, chronovores, that they're more like a vampire, a time vampire, that they can basically suck the years out of you and age you, which is going to be convenient because they do that. They capture her, they do that. They also have Captain Jack Harkness because, bless his heart, old boy ain't as young as he used to be. John Barrowman, he's got some gray hair. I mean, he's still looking good. He's a good-looking man. I think he'll still draw some eyeballs, both male and female. But he's not a pup anymore. But he doesn't have to be. Cary Grant was a chick magnet, gay guy magnet, whatever you want to call. He was a big draw even in his old age. And I think that John Barrowman will probably be that way too. So you have John Barrowman and you have Georgia Tennant temporarily. Because honestly, I don't know that she'll want to do a full series. And also the series that I'm thinking of, Doctor's Daughter, is going to be aimed more at the tweens and teens. So she helps Captain Jack escape from the chronovore, or chronovores, I don't know. Whatever. 1, 2, 3, however many. And then they can kind of be a recurring big bad in the show. But as they're escaping, something happens. She gets injured. She regenerates into, Caitlin Blackwood, which is a callback to Amy Pond. And Caitlin, I want to say that she's like 22, 23. So, again, she'll be in the right age range for teens and tweens to kind of look up to. She's young enough that she can go a long time with it. 5-10 years, she'd still look good. And another thought that I had, sometime in the first season, because you have John Barrowman, Captain Jack Harkness basically being her mentor, kind of walking her along, because basically at least in this idea, it picks up pretty quick after she leaves that space station. And she's finding her way. She's learning to be basically the Doctor's daughter, going out and saving people and having adventures and being the good guy and making mistakes and feeling bad about it and doing their best to fix it. Captain Jack's there to kind of guide her. Sometime within the first season, probably within the first 3 or 4 or 5 episodes, they end up on the computer moon with River Song. They have an adventure there, whatever, MacGuffin. But when she's leaving, River Song gives her a magic box, electronic box, a memory box, a hard drive memory, whatever. You can figure out the MacGuffin. But basically what it is, it's a box that can give a 3D projection of River Song. That way, technically she's still in the computer, at the computer moon, but a portion of her essence, her memories, whatnot, are also there with the Doctor's daughter to do anecdotes, to help her along, to kind of give her advice. And, maybe you can have her and Captain Jack kind of alternating. You can have Captain Jack most of the time and River Song just coming out and giving advice or telling stories or whatever sometimes. But the audience, the hardcore audience, they love Captain Jack. They love River Song. They want to see more of them. But I don't know if either of them is ready to do a series by themselves. John Barrowman had some Me Too kind of problems. Now, were they a big deal? I don't think so. They happened quite a while ago. He apologized for them. It's like, come on, people. Just let it go and move on. And I don't know about River Song's, I don't know about her acting, how much stuff she's got going, because she might not want to do a lot. But the thing is, they could get her in for a week and record a whole season's worth of holographic speechifying and interacting and doing her part. If they block out the whole series, 13 episodes or whatever all at once, even if they don't have the exact script, they can have a pretty good idea of how they're going to use her in all those episodes that they do use her. So, boom, there you go. You got a good-looking ginger, because a lot of people want ginger. So, you got a good-looking, young ginger that's a callback to Amy Pond, and you've got Captain Jack and River Song. And you could aim it, like I said, at the tweens. You could bring back a Torchwood-like aimed at the older audience. Maybe without Captain Jack. Maybe with Captain Jack. Maybe he runs with Jenny, the Doctor's daughter, for a while. Then he goes to Torchwood because they come back and they have an adventure and he rebuilds Torchwood and they part company maybe at the end of the first season. But she's still got the River Song, and maybe they bring in, whoever to be her sidekick. I think it'd be great. I think that it's got a lot of potential. And if Russell T. Davies is listening to this, you know what? I'm going to let you have these ideas pretty darn cheap. Might be even, contact me, let me know. It might even be as cheap as a signed cast poster. Anyway, this has been Minute News, Newt. These are my ideas. If you like them, great. Like and subscribe. If you don't like them, leave a comment. Tell me where to go. If you've got comments, ideas, put in a comment. Hope everybody has a good life. Thanks. Bye.